Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. This is episode 3 of looking at this Life Dynamics interview. At the time Mark Crutcher interviewed these 3 young women, he did not say which Texas abortion doctor they had worked for, but it later came out that it was Douglas Karpen, who pro-lifers dubbed the Texas Gosnell. And if you watch this whole series, you'll understand pretty plainly why he was called the Texas Gosnell. And from the things his employees say and the things that Gosnell's employees say, I get the feeling these two were kind of partners in crime, that they were, if not close friends, at least very congenial colleagues who talked a lot about what they did. And I think it's because Karpen was getting away with what he did that Gosnell was so convinced that he was going to be vindicated and get away with what he did. So we're going to resume. I'm trying to break down these reactions into about 10-minute chunks so I'm not overwhelming you, especially since I'm going to be linking to a lot of stuff for you to follow up. So they had just described another employee told them about a fetus that Karpen thought was dead that opened its eyes and grabbed his finger. And for some reason, that story really stuck with them. And it's really interesting, the stories that really stick with them, when all of them had seen him snipping the baby's spines to kill them. They'd all seen him introducing instruments through the soft spot to kill them. They'd all seen him digging his finger into their throat somehow to kill them. This young lady said she'd seen him put instruments in through the abdomen. But this is one story that all 3 of them were talking about that none of them witnessed, but evidently was the talk of the clinic.
He doesn't make any comments about it.
How did he kill that baby?
Yeah, we found out about it through another employee. I don't think that was said how he killed it. I'm not sure. It must have been a big abortion, though, I believe. Can't really recall.
Now, I've said in the other videos, notice that they talk about big abortions, where you would think they'd talk about late because it was late into the pregnancy. That's also terminology that we've seen in other abortion facilities, where they don't talk about late, they talk about big or large.
But I know that he does a lot of huge abortions. A lot of the times we would bring the big fetus that were over age, and we would reopen the bag and just look at it and be like, oh my God.
Again, that was a reaction that the staff at Gosnell's clinic had to baby boy A, where baby boy A didn't look like a preemie. Baby boy A looked like a full-term infant, and that's why staff took pictures of baby boy A. So I'm thinking they're talking about, when they're talking about the babies were overage, they were talking about ones that no longer looked like preemies, they looked like full-term infants.
So big, we would be amazed how big it was. And we'd be sweating and stuff because it'd take us almost an hour to perform an abortion that big. It's really hard when you only get doing an abortion that big and only dilating with like maybe 13 to 14 laminaries in the cervix. It's kind of hard. Sometimes he couldn't get the fetus out. He would yank pieces, piece by piece, when they were over the size. And I'm talking about the whole floor dirty. I'm talking about me drenched in blood. We had several occasions that where women would come in and they would actually be going in labor because that overnight insertion, the package, he might have gone a little bit too far, would put in too many in there, and some women had started to cramp, and sometimes they would get to the clinic and they would make it to the OR room because they're in a line, and when they get there, they give them these pills called Cytotec, and they put them in your gums. And
now, the fact that they are describing that you're putting the Cytotec between the cheek and the gum rather than swallowing it, that again is a sign that these are people who were working in the clinic and are aware of how Cytotec is supposed to be administered.
It takes, I'm thinking it takes about an hour before you get a full effect, and that makes your uterus start contracting. And so we've seen a lot of cases where women they felt like they had to push and they had to run to the bathroom and stuff. And on some occasions we had women that were, the fetus were falling into the toilet, or they were, or before even getting to the clinic.
Before she continues with this, before we even get into the clinic, George Tiller's late abortion practice, delivering the baby into the toilet was just the routine. That was how it was done. He didn't pull the baby out. He would give them drugs to send them into labor, and they'd be sent into the bathroom. And at Gosnell's clinic, sometimes the women delivered the babies into the toilet. And so what they're describing isn't unusual, the baby in the toilet. Baby Rowan, Angèle's baby, who when he was born alive, she asked for help, and instead of getting help, they wouldn't let her call 911. She called her friend, and her friend called 911, and they turned the medics away, saying no, they just had an hysterical patient. And once they verified that the baby was dead, then they called 911 and had the police come and eject the hysterical mother from the clinic. Delivering the baby into the toilet, pretty routine.
We had one incident where it was big news, where the fetus was left in the toilet. I don't know if y'all heard of that one. She was at McDonald's. They stopped there in the morning, and the fetus was left in the toilet, and nobody ever found out whose fetus it was, but it was one of his patients.
I'm going to Google that, and if I can find any news about it, I'll link to it below.
We knew it because we were watching it on the news that day that she was supposed to be in the clinic.
Do you remember that one that she was on her way to the OR, Crystal? She was walking to her OR and she had it right there in the hallway.
She had her baby in the hallway.
Yes.
And what happened to that baby?
I wasn't down there when that happened. Were you down there?
He just picked it up with like a pad, one of those
Chucks.
a chuck.
Again, they know about what Chuck's pads are, which again indicates that they were working in the medical field to know what a Chuck's pad is.
And put it in a trash bag.
On some occasions, of course, he pulled out a lot of breech fetus, and their toes would be moving. You know, you can see the fetus toes moving. And as he would insert the forceps, what are they called? The beards. There's two types. There's the beards, and then there's the sophers.
So again, she's describing beers and sophers, which is something a layman wouldn't know, and those are two popular types of abortion forceps. And I'll provide links below so you can see pictures of Beers forceps and Sopher forceps.
The beers are the ones with the bigger claws, and that's the one he would use to yank the fetus out. And I remember, I have a visual all the time. I always remember this. It's real disturbing to me, where he used to clamp, like push it in. He would hold the fetus by the feet and kind of pull down and insert the claws. And when he would squeeze them, you can see that baby's toes spread open.
I'm wondering what part of the baby he was squeezing on. Now she's showing opening his hand pretty wide, which has me thinking he might have been reaching in and just getting them around the skull. I don't know. And I don't remember what she says after this point, but with her gesturing, opening the forceps that wide, it seems to me like he'd at least be going for the base of the skull to damage the brain enough to kill the baby.
And I would always say, oh my goodness, you know, and people say that they don't feel. Well, if they didn't feel, why would their toes, you know, their toes would be out hanging kind of like in a...
And you notice how that woman made the same splayed toes gesture? She'd seen that too.
What's going on, you know, where am I going? And I remember clearly every time he used that instrument. I remember those little toes, you know, opening wide. It was a sad picture. I normally would turn around, I'd just hold and just turn around until he was finished. And
she said she'd just hold and turn around, but she didn't say what she was holding. I'm curious about what she was holding.
He would do abortions way over 24 weeks. I mean, either...
The death of... I got bad lighting there, sorry. Over 24 weeks, Denise Montoya, who died at his clinic, was 25 and a half weeks pregnant. So that's at least one absolutely verified over 24 weeks abortion that I know of. I'll see if I can remember more.
There's a big difference in a 24-week fetus. And every week from 24 on up, that 1 week is such a big difference. I'm talking about big fetus. I'm talking about being in the OR about an hour trying to do one procedure that big.
Okay, so this has been 10 minutes. Come back tomorrow for another part of this video.